Hey folks, it's Laura with Raintree Nursery. Welcome. I'm about to share with you one of my favorite early summer treats. It's the beginning of summer, and my elderberry bushes are absolutely loaded with their flowers. These gorgeous panicles, white or pink, if you have the types of elderberries that have purple leaves. They're all in full bloom right now. One of my favorite treats is to make elderflower champagne with these gorgeous blossoms. It sounds really fancy, and it's not. It's a dead simple recipe, and so I want to show you how it's done. Now we have all the ingredients we need to make this recipe. The first is 8 flower blossoms of the elderflower. I have 8 of those right here. I have 1.5 pounds of sugar. I always use organic sugar. I'll use a total of 16 cups of water in this recipe, but the first 8 cups are hot to dissolve the sugar. I'm going to use lemon juice for this recipe. You could use lime juice, you could use pineapple juice, you could use whatever kind of citric juice you have available, or you could use powdered citric acid. Adds a little bit of a tang to it. And this time I'm going to add a little bit of dried orange peel as well, just to give it a bit more spice. You could even use dried elderflower blossoms if this is what you have. If you're past the season where they're fresh, make sure to dry some, and that way you'll be able to make this any time of year. I just pulled these off and put them in the fridge, and they dried in my refrigerator. And this is all you need to get started. You don't even have to use prepackaged yeast. You can use wild yeast that's floating around all over the place. If you want to make it really taste a certain way every time, you can use commercial prepackaged yeast, but we're going to start this time with no yeast at all. So the first order of business is to mix everything together. We take our 8 cups of hot water and put it in our mixing vessel. For me, I'm using my crock that I make sauerkraut in. You could use a non-reactive bowl or pan. You could be glass. Now we take our 1.5 pounds of sugar. We add that into the hot water. And it's hot, so it helps dissolve the sugar. And we stir that around until the sugar dissolves. If you wanted to, you could do this on a stovetop, and then just add the mixture to your vessel. This is only going to undergo one kind of fermentation, a primary fermentation. No secondary fermentation here because it's going to be sparkling. And in order to keep it sparkling, you only ferment it for a short time, and then you enjoy it, not something you want to store. All right, so all my sugar has dissolved, and my water's a little cooler now. So I'm going to add my 1/4 cup of lemon juice, which gives it a nice flavor, gives it a little bit of tang. Again, you could use any kind of citric juice if you wanted. Toss that in there. I'm going to throw in my orange peels, and just a couple of them, just to give it a little bit more of an exotic flavor. Every time I make this, I make it a little bit different. And I'm going to put that in while the water is still a little warm to allow it to pull some of those lovely oils from the peel. And now we come to the elderflower part. You can either do this in advance, or you can just go ahead and pull off the flowers and dump them into the pot as you're going about it. These flowers, just pull them right off the stems. You don't want to add too much of the stems. The flowers are the really wonderful and fragrant part. These flowers are going to be full of all kinds of natural yeast. So we want to make sure that our water is cool enough that it doesn't kill off the yeast while we're throwing the flowers in there. All right, so now we've added all of our flowers. I just wanted to show this to you because it's so pretty. Look at that. I just love how dainty everything looks. And our water is now lukewarm, which is great. We're going to add the rest of our other 8 cups of cold water. We're going to give it a final stir. And the only reason I'm putting a cloth on the top is just to keep out fruit flies or anything that might be buzzing around looking for somewhere to land. That's all. We're going to revisit it in 24 hours and see if it's bubbly. If it's not, if somehow the natural yeast hasn't taken hold, then we'll add some champagne yeast. But usually when I make this, by the time 24 hours rolls around, it's pretty bubbly and rockin'. Okay, it's a little over 24 hours, and now it's time to check and see what our champagne is doing. So I'm going to take the lid off. And it does not look like it's bubbling. That's not a good sign. The next thing I'm going to do to see if this is actually doing anything is take a taste and see if it seems a little fuzzy or, has any effervescence at all. Nada. Okay, so I think, I thought this might happen. I think what happened here was when I added the hot water to melt the sugar, and then I put the blossoms in right after I did that, I probably inadvertently overheated the blossoms and killed any natural yeast that would have been on them. So, it tastes good. It's just not champagne. So, thinking that might have happened, this is what you do. You add winemaking yeast. So, we've got a package here of a champagne style wine yeast. You can get this at local wine and beer shops, or you can send away for it. They're inexpensive, couple of bucks for a packet. I have a little tiny quarter cup of warm water. It's about 100 degrees, just feels gently warm to the touch. I'm going to use a small amount of this, and I'm going to do what's called proofing the yeast. They're little granules that are asleep, and I'm using maybe, a quarter of this packet. And then the rest I'm going to put in the fridge. And I'm going to let these wake up in this nice warm water. It's going to take about 5 minutes. And then I'm going to add this colony of yeast to what we have in here. That will really get things going for sure. Aha, the wonders of modern science. Our yeast is now proofed. It's all sunk down to the bottom. It's waking up because of this nice warm water. So our next job is to give it something to eat, which is the sugar that's inside of our champagne. So I'm just going to dump this all in here and make sure I get all the yeast. Stir it around a little bit. And what this is going to do is it's going to form a colony inside this liquid. It's going to eat the sugar that we added to the water, which is going to cause alcohol, and it's going to get bubbly, and it's going to be wonderful. So we'll try it in another day or two to make sure that it's sparkling. All right, we're back for day 3. Let's take a look and make sure that it's doing what we want it to do. It's been sitting outside. It's been a little warm in the daytime, a little cool in the evening. Oh yes, this is bubbly. It is doing exactly what we want it to do. You can see that the flowers have changed color. Now they're kind of a brownish color. And there's little mounds, and bubbles right in here. That indicates to me that it is brewing. It also smells really alcoholic, which is also a good sign that it's doing what I want it to do. So I'm just going to pull back the flowers and take a taste. Oh yeah, it smells lovely. Yeah, just beginning to get a little bit of effervescence. It's still really sweet and not super bubbly, so it's not done yet. But we have soaked all of the goodness out of these flowers. Now we're going to age it a tiny bit. And to do that, we're going to put it in our little aging vessel, which is this gallon jug here. And then we're going to top that gallon jug in the fridge with this amazing little airlock. This is a very cool tool, and anybody who does brewing of wine needs one of these. There's a little loose part right here that allows the carbon dioxide, that's the breath of the yeast, to come up and escape, but without letting things like fruit flies in. So this is going to go on top of this when we put it in the fridge. By putting it in the refrigerator, we'll slow down the rate at which the yeast is eating the sugar, and so it will remain tasty for a little bit longer. Here, I'm going to show you how we do this. And this is super simple and low tech. I'm just going to take a funnel and a strainer and a ladle and just ladle this into here to strain out the flowers, but capture all of the liquid. And it's going to spend the rest of its time in the fridge, slowly fermenting. And this is why I call this a fresh champagne. This is only going to last about 2 weeks in your fridge. I usually make this ahead of a party or a holiday that I want to be able to serve this to the folks that drink alcohol, because it really doesn't last. I'm not going to bottle it and make it shelf stable, and eventually the yeast will eat all the sugar, it'll get super dry, and then it will lose its carbonation. So this is a lovely ephemeral drink, just going to last a couple of weeks in your fridge. And in fact, some people will put this into a plastic container, because as the carbonation increases, it will build pressure inside that container. If I use an airlock like this, that pressure will be able to escape. But I've seen people use like a 2-liter soda bottle to store this in their fridge, and they don't have an airlock, but they have to burp it every couple of days, because you can feel that plastic expand and get tighter and tighter as you get more and more carbonation. I have had these blow up in my fridge. It's a big cleanup job, so I try not to repeat that. And so I make small batches. And it's really that simple. So thank you for joining us. I'm Laura with Raintree Nursery. I hope you get a chance to make some elderflower fresh champagne. I think you'll like it quite a bit.